Back from Phoenix. Phoenix was an awesome event, wasn't it?
Yeah. Got this new shirt from somebody on Twitter with the handle Deeks, Deeks. I meant to bring it to the event. It didn't arrive until after, but still looks good.
Right. You know what? We told you here first. The cats fucking hate us.
Well,
and now there's scientific evidence, and trust the scientists, right? Trust the science. Cats are apparently suffering from stress and anxiety post-lockdown because their owners are now working from home more, disrupting their solitary routines. And the headlines in the Times actually reads, "Grumpy cats are fed up of their owners staying home."
Yeah, definitely. You know, cats, that's their house, and they prefer if you're not there. So if they're there working, they're like, "What are you doing in my house?" So there's a lot of anxiety in the cat world. And of course, the cats run the simulation that is, we all live in that simulation. So it's a real risk, because if the cats go on revolt, they'll flip the switch and the simulation will be over, and then we'll all be gone.
Dead, gone. You know, it's kind of juxtaposed to the headline from the World Economic Forum, you know, of Davos, of the Great Reset, the guys who want to, who believe that they're the smartest people in the room, they're the smartest people in the world, and that though they destroyed this world as we know it, that they're here to save us, right? Well, this past week, they were complaining about toxic positivity and said that, in fact, we should have fear, anger, and sadness are natural emotions, and we should embrace them. So toxic positivity, however, to me, you know, it's just projection, right? Because the World Economic Forum, one of their papers from a few years ago that just went kind of viral in the past year was that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's toxic positivity. Hey, you'll own nothing. The global economy will be destroyed. Your money is trash, but you'll be happy. Just smile, right? Like that's Brave New World-esque sort of toxic positivity. Whereas we on Orange Pill Podcast and our Telegram group at t.me/orange pill, we have relentless optimism.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting comment they made, because it goes completely against, let's say, the notion of the pursuit of happiness, which I think is in either the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence in the American founding documents. So this is kind of it goes against anything that anyone might hold America to be representative of, right? And now with America having a lot of problems with the exit from Afghanistan, as it were, so that what Ronald Reagan called this shining city on a hill, it looks like, we're coming under the globalists here are just doing a psyop to try to destroy America psychologically, and and foreign policy mishaps and mistakes look like it's causing tremendous problems, actually in the geopolitical sphere. So that's interesting, I think, because it could mark a turning point.
Yeah, and of course, it's also, they like to push fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the FUD, the global FUD, and whenever they need to push through policies, fear is the best way to do it. Fear allowed and enabled the Patriot Act. Fear is allowing all sorts of insanity across the Western world, especially in terms of COVID and the fear that some boomers might die. And so they're altering the entire fabric of society and culture and civilization as we've known it for the past several thousand years in order to, using fear as a way to do that. Whatever they're doing, we don't know, but I don't think they know either. I think the plans that keep on being rolled out to protect us from COVID, and I saw some sort of headline that they're now rolling out these cameras across public transport to identify people in order to keep us safe, keep us happy. That we'll be safe and they'll be able to do it. But of course, it's the same thing that China has, right? Total surveillance state in order to protect everybody, they say, to keep us all safe, that we're making sure that the bad actors don't get on the train.
Right. And diametrically opposed to the idea of fear is the idea of faith. And again, faith is, fake it till you make it. I have aspirations. I have dreams. I want to be somebody. I am somebody. I am a man. All these ideas of transcendence are based on faith. So if you're replacing faith with fear, then you're removing that from the human experience, and which is evil. So this is the embodiment of evil. This is if the devil were to manifest and incarnate on here today, it would be that phrase by those people. They are literally spewing satanic verses without. I mean, it's by definition. It's not a theory. I'm not making conspiracy theory here. I'm saying this is historically, looking at the history of literature going back thousands of years. This is how writers and artists have portrayed Satan for hundreds, thousands of years. So that's what we're dealing with, and at a bad time, because the U.S., the immunity of the U.S., the ability to protect ourselves against foreign invaders and foreign influences is at a very low ebb. So that's quite unfortunate timing on that.
The other thing that happened this week was OnlyFans announced that they were going to basically get rid of porn on their website. As far as I knew, it was only a porn sort of distribution sort of platform, social media platform. And they cited that their banking relationships were the reason why they did this. And I posit it could be these angry cats, because they know that, having porn at home is keeping you at home, and maybe they want you out. Get out. We've had enough of you. But Alex Bosworth of Lightning Lab said this really interesting thing. He said the easy way to get around the First Amendment is to make cash illegal and regulated banks mandatory. Then make the regulated banks refuse to do business with speech that is disallowed. Now anyone whose job it is to produce disallowed speech can't put food on the table. Job done. So, of course, we've seen this, especially since 2016 and the absolute utter humiliation of Hillary Clinton. And since then, we've seen, the Democrats get around the First Amendment restrictions by saying the corporations, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, PayPal, Visa, AWS, Microsoft, they're private corporations. They could take Alex Jones. They could take all these people offline if they want. It's not coming from us. Promise.
Yeah. The OnlyFans thing, it's a real conundrum, because as you say, it's essentially like Pornhub, right? It's a porno site. And I think Pornhub has had no difficulty raising money. It's a huge business, and I'm not sure they're public, but I mean, they have no problem raising money. I think like 10 or 20% of all the traffic on the internet is Pornhub. And OnlyFans is kind of the same business. So the banks wanted to do some financing for OnlyFans, and then they were saying, well, you can't have porn. So it'd be like going to Pornhub and saying, we want to lend you money, but you can't have porn on your site called Pornhub, right? It makes no sense. So then they backtracked and said, oh, no, actually, we made a mistake. Of course you have porn, because that's what you do. You're a porn site. So I don't understand. Is banking? I mean, maybe we're in an era where the professional class is so sloppy these days. I mean, I think the Kabul is a good kind of example of what we're dealing with in the professional classes, whether it's the medical profession, the legal profession, all professional classes. These are professional soldiers. They're Pentagon. We gave them trillions of dollars. And they're literally like Abbott and Costello level of incompetence and killing a lot of people gratuitously, right? I mean, probably more than will die in 9/11 will die exiting Kabul, thanks to the American dumb tomfoolery, right? And that we went there to avenge that, right? Ostensibly. So good job on the revenge. We can't even do. So anyway, so then you have the same professionals here in the banking class who are like, here we have unlimited amounts of money from the Fed that we paid nothing for, and we're using it to buy chateaus in the Hamptons for $100 billion. And we're going to give you guys money. I haven't looked at the prospectus. I haven't read anything. I don't even know who you are. But I got this sticky note on my phone that said, give you $1 billion. So what do you do again? Oh, you're a porn site. No, I can't do it because my mother-in-law is a Karen and she hates porn. But wait a minute. My fee is worth how much? Oh, that's right. You are a porn site. Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused. Here's your $1 billion. So the level of incompetence on every single aspect of the professional classes, the so-called white-collar class in America, it is truly epically. I mean, we've been saying this for years in the banking class, right? They just get free money, and of course they're incredibly incompetent. But now we're seeing it spread to all things, whether it's the medical, the pharmaceutical, the legal. They're all totally drunk off their ass and just jabbing people and shooting people and getting free money. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
So in this case, I think, well, first of all, OnlyFans did reverse their decision because of because they claim they got guarantees from the banks. And the situation with the banks is financial censorship. This has been a story why people have gone to Bitcoin. Bitcoin fixes financial censorship since 2009. This has been the case. In this case, they were banks wouldn't process the Visa and MasterCard and PayPal payments and allow, I gather, I haven't been to OnlyFans, but I gather like Max and I could create an OnlyFans orange pill site and we could get naked and do this episode naked. And you would be giving us money kind of in a Patreon way or a Substack way. So you could pay for the X-rated version of it. So, I mean, that's part of the issue, right? Of course, is that the US system is an oligarchic one. We know this. And they prefer Vegas, the big casinos control online gambling and they prevented online gambling. Here, we're seeing like the Hollywood studios, those sort of people want to control content creation. But nevertheless, it's also that social justice warrior sort of from the left, like, moral policing. They're the moral police, just like what we used to see back in the 80s. You had the moral majority of the Christian right who would try to also ban situations like this. They didn't want porn. They didn't want, heavy metal, things like that. Now you have the left who don't want, people enjoying themselves, I guess. So Bitcoin fixes that. And OnlyFans was forced to unwind this decision. And they say they got a guarantee from the banks. So, a financial
So
censorship.
they're saying that the credit card payment processors weren't processing payments for OnlyFans.
And they couldn't find banking services. So just like a lot of weed companies in America, even though on the state level it's legal to sell marijuana, they can't find banking services. So they have to take all this cash. They can't accept credit cards because, again, like there's a moral sort of thing coming from the higher level where they're afraid of getting, any sort of bad relationship with the regulators.
Right. But they've been, OnlyFans has been going for a few years, right? It's not new. It's been going on for a few years. So how have they been working for the last few years? They have porn and people are paying for porn somehow. Then they were going to go do it, right? So how...
I think it might have just got too famous and too big. And then probably in the first year, I think it's only been around for like a year or two. I don't know. People in the comment section could post their experience with OnlyFans. But the fact is, I think probably they didn't know what OnlyFans was and they just kept on paying it. Just like a lot of exchanges that you could buy Bitcoin you had no problem for a year or two buying Bitcoin with transfers from your bank. Once they figured out, oh, wait, this is a Bitcoin company, and now we're going to ban you from our
They were
services.
saying it impacts 10 million housewives that were having sex with vegetables or something. Whatever they do.
Whatever you do. You could do strip tease, pole dancing. I don't know what they do on there, but it's it's a Patreon style site for people sitting at home doing stuff in their kitchen table or something.
Okay. Well,
we're going to have to investigate this, research properly.
Yeah, I'm going to get some more information. Speaking of pornography, so Ron Jeremy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the name?
Yeah, of course. He's a porn star.
The Hedgehog?
Yeah. I didn't know that was his name. Yeah.
That's his nickname?
Yeah.
Right? He's been in more porn movies than anybody in history.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's facing all kinds of indictments and things.
30 indictments.
30 indictments.
Yeah.
But wasn't he in a porn movie?
I'm not sure. Again, I haven't really looked into it. I did see this pass through my Twitter stream, but I think it was for outside the set. It was at these parties and stuff like that. He would accost, a young teenage woman and be like, I could get you into this movie here, but you have to suck my dick.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Things like that.
And so speaking of sex in the news, so the kid who was on the cover of the Nirvana album, who's chasing the dollar on a hook and he's naked, is a baby. He's, I think, 3 or 6 months old, 4 months old. So now, it's 30 years later, he's suing because of exploitation. Yeah.
Well, it'll be an interesting case, and I'm sure it'll go several layers up in the justice system. I read Jonathan Turley on that, and he thinks it's zero case. He's just trying to get a payday, and that First Amendment will rule on this situation.
I saw a funny comment that that the photo is this baby kind of swimming toward money, and so the comment was, "It looks like he's going to take the money."
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, why not? If you could get a couple million, why not try, right? I think. Yeah. And he was saying he doesn't want his name forever associated with that image, and it's I saw a lot of comments saying, "What's your name again?"
Yeah.
But I would love to have been that baby on that cover. It's one of the most iconic images of all time, and thus art, right? So Jonathan Turley's argument is that they're going to have a hard time trying to win that case. Maybe you might just get paid off by some of these people because they're very wealthy, and they might be okay, we don't feel like having time in court and wasting our time with this. But nevertheless, that it would be unlikely to get through. But you know what has come through?
What?
Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Again, Bitcoin fixes this. And just like the World Economic Forum is suggesting that you should embrace fear, anger, and sadness, this is what that leads to. This is the embracement of fear, anger, and sadness. U.S. money supply has increased nearly 40% over the last 2 years, the largest 2-year increase ever. And then he has a chart of the annual changes in M2 since 1959. So, under these states of emergency throughout history, we've seen it for thousands of years, literally. If you look through all the history books and, etched in stone, you see always an emergency is when the citizens are full of fear. That's when the crazy stuff happens. And here you have the money supply growing and growing and growing. And where this leads to has never been a good place. However, our institutions are led by people who think that they know history, and therefore they have a better way to handle these situations like inflation or hyperinflation, and that they're smarter than our ancestors before us, and that they can somehow, with all their surveillance technology and all their micromanagement, and they know every single need and desire of you. They've watched your OnlyFans. They know all your emails and your spending habits and things like that, that they can micromanage their way out of a hyperinflationary event, which is in the mind, right? When your mindset changes and you don't have faith in the currency anymore.
Yeah. It's just constantly lowering the bar. 'Cause, I mean, if you look at the great accomplishments, Amelia Earhart flying over the Pacific, or scaling Mount Everest, or trying to fly over the Pacific anyway, scaling Mount Everest, a pole vaulter hitting new records in the Olympics, the Wright brothers. There's a dream, there's faith, there's an idea, and there's something hard, like a mountain, that needs to be, climbed. In this world of evil that we're being forced to accept because of no media diversity anymore, it's about lowering the bar. It's about like, oh, you couldn't pole vault over this height, so we're going to keep lowering the bar until you can just walk over. Oh, you couldn't climb Mount Everest, so we're going to blow it up. We're just going to blow it up and turn it into rubble, and you're going to walk through the rubble. How's that feel? We're going to make that easy. We're going to pay for the explosives with all the money we're printing. You have no ambition. You have no aspirations. You're just part of the collective. You are an insect, and you're an ant in the ant colony. That's it. Have no expectations. You have no agency. You're just part of a gluttonous, homogenized, margarine. It's just deplorables, right? So this is the thing. They want to stamp out all aspiration, all dream, all faith, all right. They want to because they're evil. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's not because they're incompetent or they're stupid or they're bureaucrats or whatever. They're evil. EVIL, evil. Evil exists. And when they say that fear and anger exist,
sadness, yeah,
evil exists. Evil exists. And it's, we've been struggling with evil for a long, long time. And because of all this money printing, our immune system against evil has gotten weakened. And now we're on the threshold of hell. Literally, people, we're on the threshold of hell.
So through the past 50 years of fiat, since 1971, which you've seen introduced to overcome all of that fear, anger, and sadness caused by the dismantling of your economy, your financial system, your money, the export of all your manufacturing capacity, the bankruptcy of America several times, including August 15th, 1971. The reason why they're now coming out, like the reason why you don't feel positive is because it's natural to feel fear, anger, and sadness. But, just like embrace it, just enjoy that feeling. Over that period of time, look at what they've introduced. They introduced corn syrup, then SSRIs and antidepressants, then opioids. Like all these things to dull the pain.
They get stronger and stronger. They have to get, just like quantitative easing gets bigger and bigger.
Easing.
Right now, fentanyl, we're saying it, so we're finding fentanyl in all the drugs now, right? And fentanyl is instant death.
Right. And stimulus, there's more stimulus coming, and it's going to go more parabolic next year. And they know that it won't assuage your fear, anger, and sadness. And so instead, what they're doing is like, they're saying having any happiness, having any positivity or optimism, well, that's the bad thing. That's toxic. Just like they say toxic Bitcoin maximalists, they're toxic. Just like they're saying now, toxic positivity, toxic optimism, toxic good feelings. Those are toxic. You don't want to feel those.
Yeah.
They're not for you, the deplorable people. Whereas one Satoshi is fuck you money. That's all you need is one Satoshi. And it says, fuck you, World Economic Forum. Fuck your fear, anger, and sadness. Fuck it, because fuck you.
Right. I mean, it's sad. I mean, nobody's home. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Literally, the president is brain dead, and his policies are killing Americans by the thousands right now as we speak. And the institutions are crumbled. There's no media diversity. There's no proper discourse. So we're all alone, folks. Here in the United States, we've been abandoned.
Except for our cats.
You get the little kitty cats.
So yeah, that's why Max and I have started traveling. We went to Austin, we were in Miami, we went to Phoenix, we're going to Paris. And we've got to leave the house, right? Because I got the stares from my computer in which our cat lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it stared at me angrily, and it's like basically telling me, get the fuck out of my house. You are bugging me. So we have to leave every once in a while. You imagine how horrible this has been for cats. And before we go to our guest, we have an amazing guest, Samson. Mo. Max and I have been pronouncing it like cow, Samson Mao, but I think his name is Samson Mo.
I think so.
Right? But I do want to quickly say one more thing, which is another headline. Got to take off my cat glasses and put on my regular glasses. A supply chain crunch that was meant to be temporary now looks like lasting well into next year. And it's going to last into the year after that and the year after that. And you know why? Because of all the money printing to hide the fact that all that fear, anger, and sadness might make you do something, right? Might make you try to fix it. Might try to make you change this two-party system that's fucked everything up in the United States, elsewhere across the world as well. Might make you fix your money, might make you fix this, the corruption or things like that. So all the money printing is going to cause even more supply crunch and more chaos around the world as inflation rears its ugly head.
Yeah, exactly right. The supply crunch is happening. So in the first part of the crisis, we had a demand crush, a demand for stuff. People were hoarding, toilet paper and stuff like that. And shelves were empty. But now we have a supply crush. So the supply chains are breaking down, and not temporarily, but on a more sustained basis for probably several years, at which time the world will be a very different place when we come out of this, and it will be a very, very different place. And the sphere of global influence will have shifted east for sure. And with that comes a lot of different things and realities for folks. It's very, very, very different world at the other end of this current. It's part two of the 2008 financial crisis that we always talked about, that they papered it over. We said within 10 or 12 years it would have another, it would just break again, but a lot bigger. So right on cue. Here we are 10 or 12 years later, and this whole thing is collapsing again. And this time there's no coming back. There's no amount of money printing that's going to do anything. And so that'll be the perfect time for the geopolitical sphere of gravity, the center of gravity, to move east, where it will be in another six to 9 months.
Well, we are toxic optimists here.
Yep.
And it's a good time to go to the original toxic Bitcoin maximalist.
Yeah.
He created the hat. We'll come back, and when we come back, we'll have the hat because Max will have it on for the interview with Samson. But it's a good time to segue to that. Let's go.
All right, we're back. Let's get into this interview. Time now to turn to Samson, Mo, and Adam Back. They are shadowy crypto supercoders, Blockstream spies, and original toxic Bitcoin maximalist. Whoa, that's a mouthful, Stacy.
Guys, welcome to Orangeville Podcast.
Thanks for having us on.
Well, we've seen you all over the place this past week or two, and with some very big news. Congratulations on your over $200 million raise, which puts you in a unicorn status, even by a pre-COVID dollar status. You're a unicorn.
This is true. Got to bear in mind that 37% monetary inflation there.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was 20.
With Blockstream, of course, you guys have really stayed the course for the whole existence of Bitcoin, and stuck with Bitcoin during all the tumult, and the hard forks and user activated soft fork, and so now here we are in 2021, and the Blockstream business model seems to really be coming into its own right now. And congratulations on sticking with it. Did you ever, over the past 10 years, ever question your judgment in being Bitcoin maximalist Samson.
Yeah, sometimes I would read Peter Schiff's tweets and I would just doubt Bitcoin. I would seriously think that maybe it is gold and we were wrong all along.
I think you're lying
How
there.
about you, Adam? Did you ever have sleepless nights that maybe you were on the wrong path?
No, I mean, actually, if Bitcoin is down, it's generally a good time to buy. The distinction between investors and speculators, if the price is down, the investor is happy because he can buy more.
Right, but okay, Blockstream is really is diversifying now. You've got satellites beaming from outer space. You're going into the mining business, as we understand it, and I guess a lot of the money is earmarked to develop an ASIC chip. I think people are very, very excited about this. Who wants to tell us more about this? Samson?
Sure. So we're planning to build ASIC miners. We acquired Spondoolies in Israel. They're an OG Bitcoin mining maker company. So they originally made like the SP10, SP20, SP30, and it's pretty good hardware for back in the day. And they gave like Bitmain quite a good run for their money. And now we want to move into professional grade, enterprise grade mining equipment too. So standardizing the form factor to 1U server type designs and making everything more modular, hot swappable, and easier to maintain. And I think that's the future of the mining industry, like moving towards standardized equipment over shoebox design.
We had some miners on a few weeks ago, and they were saying that progress in the design of the chips has kind of run its course, and it's all about getting cheap energy. What's your comment on that? And are we at the 7, I think it's micrometer, right? 7 micrometer chip. Is that where the
7 nanometers?
A nanometer, excuse me. And is that the current state of the art? And what do you think about this idea that chip design is really less important than just getting cheap energy?
It's pretty profitable to mine right now. So people are even dusting off, previous generation hardware. And the current generation hardware is mining Bitcoin probably $5,000, $6,000 per coin on a already like $48,000 price. So yeah, I mean, you can make money with like anything that's not too ancient and still works right now. And in other phases of the market, the energy is more important. I don't think it's, in terms of the efficiency of the chips, the trend. So, it's 7 nanometers and 5 nanometers. Some of the fabs are making 5 now. And probably some people who are making new miners will be using the 5s. And it's basically caught up with the same as, cell phones and laptop processors and things like that.
Right. So, this whole ASIC design is something that really interests us. That was the one sort of weak spot in the whole Bitcoin story, is that there was a sort of monopoly. I mean, not like a monopoly where they're controlling the situation, but most stuff came from Bitmain or Canaan, right? And that's kind of the only two, it's kind of a weak spot because it's a little bit centralized for the Bitcoin network. So like what will set the Blockstream thing apart? For me, when I think of you guys, I think of, that you are geared more towards decentralization. You seem to push that as much as possible. Right. And is like the ordinary person listening or watching in the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group, who is not like, doesn't have $1 billion to set up a huge operation with thousands of miners. So is this something for the ordinary person, or is it just going to be also part of one of these big conglomerates?
Well, I think the decentralization has to start somewhere and work its way down. So, different parts of decentralization, but as you said, going back a few years, there were only 2 or 3 manufacturers really with significant volume. And that's improved over the last couple of years. You've got MicroBT, a new entrant with some pretty nice miners. But one form of centralization for the moment is that a lot of that equipment is manufactured in China. And, particularly with China having kind of love-hate relationship with Bitcoin where they'll ban aspects of it and then it'll recede and it'll continue. It's just, I think you want decentralization so that there is different parts of Bitcoin in different geographies, just for sort of balance of geopolitical risk. And so one of the differentiators with us is that we are, we have supply chain and assembly and design outside of China, more internationally, basically. Many of the actual fab plants that manufacture the chip are global companies with fabs in different countries, and the same for the assembly companies. So there's not actually a sort of business reason to make everything in China. That's just a sort of historic reason. And so we'll,
right. And you mentioned that decentralization. You just said start somewhere and works its way down, right? Works its way down what?
So just basically that, if we go from, let's say 5 manufacturers to 6, that's not 100. And, so in the longer term, I think a lot of people will be interested to be able to buy ASICs, which are pretty hard to acquire now. Like most manufacturers wouldn't sell you their ASICs. So maybe that's somewhere we can get to in the future where there's kind of easier barrier to entry into making a miner, designing your own form factor miner. Like one of the bottlenecks right now, if you wanted to do that, make a USB miner, be to find somebody to sell you the chips, or to make a water heater to, power a central heating system using Bitcoin mining. People have tried that and found that they couldn't easily acquire chips. So, with our decentralization mindset, we'd be more willing to and interested actually to see that kind of thing evolve in the future.
So you're saying that ASICs become a mass consumer item?
I mean, eventually.
Oh, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Right. Okay. So if ASICs become a mass consumer item, then you're saying that is part of the decentralization kind of vector that Bitcoin is always on, and it's always going toward more decentralization. And so I guess that would contribute to that, correct? Because now you've got this consumer item and people are potentially mining on a consumer level, and that would be global, right? And it just adds to the impenetrable, the robustness of the network, right? Because it's being replicated globally over potentially millions, if not a billion, kind of participants in the network, right?
Right. Yeah. But there's also pool protocol evolution. So at Blockstream, we started some years ago a protocol called Open Hash. So today, another form of centralization is mining pools. So if you mine, even a fairly large farm, most people use a pool, and there are, maybe 20 plus or minus pools. And so the Open Hash protocol, also known as Better Hash or Stratum V2 now, is coming close to kind of production readiness. And as more pools switch over to that, it allows an individual miner, say somebody with a few miners in their garage, to choose the transactions to go in the block, where today those are chosen by the pool. So that's another form of decentralization. So we're pretty excited to see that too.
Right. So, Bitcoin has this interesting philosophy at its heart. It's this thing called decentralization, and everything in the markets, in capitalism as we know it today, or in socialism or in communism, hews towards centralization, right? Capitalism is supposed to be competitive, but in the modern capitalism, it's always becoming an oligopoly. Bitcoin just keeps on this vector of decentralization. Was it all in the Genesis block, and we're just fulfilling that design protocol as it was originally iterated? What accounts for that? Is it just the brilliant design from day one?
Well, I mean, I think some of the economic effects you mentioned there are kind of deficiencies of the fiat system and the political influence over money, the Cantillon effect, that kind of stuff. So, with Bitcoin as a hard money, maybe we get a much freer market, and so less of that kind of crony capitalism, not really quite a free market out there, right?
So you're saying Bitcoin's success and its decentralization is mostly a factor driven by the failure of the current system, which is something we've talked about before. Usually when there's a bank crisis or there's a bank failure, adoption of Bitcoin goes up. And certainly now people are starting to realize, hey, inflation is real. So people are looking for inflation hedges and they come back to Bitcoin. But in other words, Bitcoin is the solution, but it would sit there and nobody would look at it if fiat money was working. But fiat money's not working. right?
Right.
Well, the problem
Definitely
is,
helps adoption for fiat to be under stress. And as we opened earlier, 37% of US dollars in existence were created since the start of COVID, basically.
the problem with fiat is that it looks to most people like it is working. So they don't notice the inflation because it looks gradual, even though it is not gradual. It's kind of like boiling a frog in a pot of water. If you turn it on slow enough, they don't really notice, and then boom, they're dead. So that's why people are kind of complacent. They see the system is working. They don't really understand the need for Bitcoin because everything is so subtle and so gradual. But I think that's going to change, and we're going to see more and more countries experience hyperinflation. It's just we're teetering on the brink right now. So definitely it's a good time to get involved in Bitcoin and really understand what Bitcoin is all about.
What you bring up the brink, and you bring up all the financial instability. What is Blockstream's chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks? Like, what motivates you? Is it just the technical side? Is it like being a super coder, or is it the macroeconomics? Does the macroeconomic situation influence what you develop?
Well, I think it's more the kind of blend of social change.
It's both
as well, right? Sort of positive social change, fix the money, fix the world.
It's really that we like to say as Bitcoiners, Bitcoin fixes this, but it's not really Bitcoin fixes this. It's we fix this. It's you, Stacy, Max, and Adam that are fixing this. Bitcoin just enables us to fix it. It gives us a tool or a weapon to go about affecting change. If you look at the fiat system, it's basically stealing prosperity from people, inflating away their savings, and making new technological advancements out of reach. Like if you take rocket launches, right? The cost to launch a rocket is a small rocket, maybe tens of millions of dollars. And to launch a bigger rocket, you're getting into the billions of dollars territory. And that's just not something that anyone can do. And then you have capture. So companies like SpaceX that have a lot of money already can get into that, or Blue Origin, right? But other people that might want to innovate and build something, that's completely out of reach. And that just gets further and further out of reach. And that's just one example, but you can look at a number of things. We're not developing new sources of energy, right? We've kind of gotten stuck, and I feel we're regressing. We're trying to make more inefficient means of generation of energy, whereas we could be pushing ahead, advancing nuclear power, advancing fusion power too. And I think Bitcoin allows us to get there because instead of having less purchasing power, a hodler would be able to fund development, fund new experimental developments, and advance that tech so that we can get fusion reactors. And we have that demand for energy because of Bitcoin mining, right? Like it makes sense that you would want to invest in something that would give you almost free, limitless power down the road. That would be a big payoff, and that would allow you to have a massive mining operation too. So all these incentives with Bitcoin and money, they're interlinked. So it's not just money or technology, it's money and technology.
Right. Let's also talk about energy for a second here. So Bitcoin is disturbing finance and fiat money. It's also doing the same thing to energy, right? So it's energy is centralized. It's very tied into the banking system. And there's a lot of, like we see in Afghanistan right now, and what happens when the energy industry and the defense contracting industry and the governments all collude to create this enormous colossal disaster, right? But with Bitcoin, it's all about pushing the decentralization of energy, right? So we see this in Africa now, where there's no formal pipelines, energy pipelines, but you can take your mining and find the energy. You can find the hydro projects, and so that the adoption of Bitcoin in Africa is, and now we see in El Salvador, who's going to use volcano energy, right? It's disrupting the energy business. I mean, that's the thing about the energy debate. It's not about does Bitcoin use energy or too much energy. They're looking at it completely wrong. The way to look at it is it's disrupting that entire energy grid, just like it's simultaneously disrupting the fiat grid. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the Bitcoin improves the cost of energy and the amount of energy available because it provides a steady base load. And building grid infrastructure requires financing, and to achieve project financing, you need to present a viable business case. And if there's a buyer of last resort ready to absorb any spare capacity, you can make a much more compelling business case and then build more power infrastructure, which the modern power infrastructure tends to be more zero emission, hydro, geothermal, solar, wind, that kind of thing. And I think also it's fascinating that Bitcoin is an energy derived currency, right? It takes energy to create it. And if you look at the kind of lifeblood of economic growth over the last century and going into the future, it's strongly correlated with energy per capita. And countries, and that's grown year on year for many decades. And countries with higher energy capacity per capita are wealthier and faster economic growth than ones with less. So I think Bitcoin can help accelerate energy capacity in the world. So there's this concept called the Kardashev type 1 civilization, which is just about civilization reaching a point where it can usefully extract and put to work the energy capacity on the planet. And we're a very long way from that. And so, to build the future, we need to build the power grids, and we need economic business case to fund that, infrastructure development. And so Bitcoin makes everything more efficient there. And the other thing is there's a lot of unused power in the world. We have a mining farm in Montreal, and that province of Canada, Quebec, has enough unused hydro capacity to power the entire Bitcoin network 2 times over. So there's lots of unused capacity.
3 times.
Yeah, I mean, that Kardashev scale is interesting to me because, when we look out into the cosmos for intelligent life, we look for life that is using as much energy as possible. And yet we have these ESG sort of investors who tell us to use less. And you're like, that would suggest we're not intelligent life.
It's kind of weird. There's this kind of energy austerity, which is prevalent now. And it's just saying we need to use less. And, people are trying to shut down nuclear plants, modern nuclear plants are very safe. And it's just a regression in our progress as a species. Just, let's go back to the cave and not do anything, not consume any energy. But like Adam is mentioning, our civilization is derived from energy. Everything that we have today is a factor of energy production and consumption. And going back to the earlier point, Bitcoin mining just opens new doors. Like, we can access stranded energy. And with some of our tech, like our modular mining units, we don't even need internet where we go. We can tap into the Bitcoin satellite network that we spun up and mine pretty much wherever there is power. And there is power everywhere. So it really changes that dynamic. You can go to a remote mountain village that has geothermal power, set up a mining operation, and provide energy to others too, and potentially build new centers of life, like cities and towns around that mining facility.
Yeah, I mean, people think that energy doesn't go anywhere, but there's a law of conservation of energy. And so, all the hydro energy, was 20 gigawatts that's unused in the Quebec province, it just pulls out the sluice gates and hits the environment at the bottom of the dam. So it's effectively neutral. And by not using it for Bitcoin mining, they're foregoing, billions of economic activity in that province of Canada. So I think, if people fully make use of their resources, it can drive economic prosperity too.
Right. So it's about efficiency of energy. I think, what is the number? 30% or more of the energy is completely wasted. I think these 170,000 terawatt usage per year, and a huge percentage of that is just wasted energy. So clearly, if you have a technology that is 100% efficient, and Bitcoin is, and it replaces all the inefficiencies of both fiat money and gold, you're going to end up with using a lot less energy. So that's the ironic thing about it, is that if we went to a global Bitcoin standard, the actual global energy usage would be cut dramatically, because you're getting rid of two of the biggest inefficient energy users in the world, and that would be the military complex and the fiat money world. But getting back to Blockstream for a second, so when you guys kind of started out, you're very sticking to the maximalist principle of kind of, you're dealing with a monetary network here. We're going to go slow and make sure that we don't break it. As a result, a lot of people spun out and they created altcoins because they were frustrated at the rate at which the core developers were going. They wanted to do smart contracts and all these things. So he created thousands of altcoins. Now, in the last year, we do have layer 2. And, Satoshi in his notes said, hey, this is going to create a layer 2 eventually when you get around to it. And sure enough, it has created layer 2. And that's what Jack Mallers went into El Salvador for 3 months with Lightning, this Lightning app, which is layer 2. The president bought into it. Now they've gone to a Bitcoin standard starting in a few days. So, the question is that, A, is this any surprise to you? And B, doesn't this kind of destroy the use case for just about every other project or altcoin out there?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I think the data doesn't always support some of those arguments because Bitcoin is not a centralized thing. It doesn't have a company, a CEO, a foundation, a marketing department, and all of the altcoins do have promoters. So they are, they're selling their coin by comparison to Bitcoin because it's the gold standard. And if you look at the actual data in terms of the rate of change, number of contributors, amount of code written in Bitcoin, it's actually high, very, very high. And of course, it is also aiming for a very high security bar. So it has very extensive testing. So they don't rush things into production and then act surprised when $600 million is hacked, as happened last week on a chain we won't name.
Doesn't Ethereum have a chain split right now?
Yes.
Right now, as we're talking.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that we care, but it happened.
Right. But, now we're getting these layer 2. We have Lightning, we have Liquid. Tell us about your work on Liquid. Why is it needed? Do you think we're just replicating the legacy financial system, or, tell us about what you're doing with Liquid and, these security tokens?
Definitely. So, like you said, we're focused on Bitcoin. So Liquid is a Bitcoin sidechain. A lot of the work we're doing at Blockstream is to extend Bitcoin in a multitude of ways, sidechains, Lightning, satellites, you name it. But it's all about Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the only one that matters forever. So for Liquid, I think this is the basis of a new financial system that is built on Bitcoin. So Liquid is anchored to Bitcoin through its federation members. And you can do a lot of interesting things on Liquid, like issue stablecoins like USDT. We have a Canadian dollar stablecoin, Japanese yen stablecoin from Crypto Garage as well. And we can have security tokens. So our Blockstream mining note, which is a securitized note of our hash rate done through Stoker in Luxembourg, is already live, and we've sold about $7.8 million of this security already. And then there's Infinite Fleet and the EXO token, which is a game publisher that is sharing profit from game revenues. So you can kind of see the beginning of where this is going. And if you think that Blockstream got it right the first time, then we're probably going to get this right too. And we'll have this new emergent financial system built on top of Bitcoin. So everything settles in Bitcoin at the end of the day. Dividends or profit share can be paid out in Bitcoin to the holders of these securities. And you just get to tap into that whole crypto exchange ecosystem with these tokens if they have the regulatory oversight, because you have this exchange infrastructure that's been built up over the past 10 plus years that can handle 24/7, 365 trading, right? Like, why do we stop trading stocks on the weekend? Why do we stop after 5 p.m. on weekdays? It just makes no sense. Like, that is not any modern system. It's a holdover from the dark ages. And also having security tokens on Liquid means that you can trade peer-to-peer. So you don't have that Robinhood GameStop fiasco where the centralized platform just said, hey, can you guys stop trading? You can just keep going. Like people are trading the BMN tokens in our Telegram chat, OTC, just trading with one another if they're on that accredited investor list for that security. So really, this is where we're going with everything. We're building finance on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a number of startups building on top of Liquid. So as well as the exchanges and market makers, there's a decentralized automated market maker based on Liquid technology called TDEX. There's an atomic swap kind of mobile app called SideSwap, which has also kind of peer-to-peer market. You can make your own listings for any Liquid asset. So there are a lot of different diverse things organically building on top of Liquid by lots of independent startups and developers. So we see that continuing, and a richer ecosystem over time of different financial instruments and smart contracts based on Bitcoin technology.
Right. So everything settles on Bitcoin, right? So on the Bitcoin, you can build all kinds of stuff, and everything settles ultimately on Bitcoin. So you don't need, so it's just remarkable that, when do you think the day of reckoning is coming, or will it ever come, where people just realize that these other multi-billion-dollar projects are not really offering anything? It seems like the day of reckoning would come the same day that the day of reckoning comes for fiat money.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of interesting things. I mean, one is this kind of quote that people buy Bitcoin at the price they deserve. So that's kind of one factor. If you fight it, you'll end up paying a higher price. Resist the urge to buy. And then the other thing is, I think most crypto trading is basically Bitcoin denominated. So it's actually the unit of account and has been for some years for crypto trading. There's no point trading in a crypto space if you're making a loss versus Bitcoin. You might as well just hold, right? And indeed, for most people, it's probably safer and better to hold. So I think people aren't really under any illusion that, they want to accumulate more Bitcoin for the most part, but they just see kind of speculative opportunities in other chains. And over the long term, that tends to correct. Now, I think eventually the market will become more rational and realize that the sticky value in a chain is down to the switching cost, and the switching cost is very, very low.
Right. And, Max mentioned that with Bitcoin, the transaction is a settlement, and that is something as well that you could see is a natural, amazing disruption for the equity markets, because there are so many trusted middlemen in that situation of trading stocks. So, however, in the Bitcoin community, there is a resistance that it's only Bitcoin and nothing else. So, to try to extend that sort of settlement is, the transaction is the settlement, is another revolutionary, amazing thing.
It's interesting you point that out. A lot of people don't talk about that, but the settlement aspect of Bitcoin is just incredible. Like, even if you look at traditional financial systems and stocks and whatnot, it's very difficult to actually fully settle something. And I think that point is lost to most people. And altcoins, Ethereum and whatnot, don't fix that at all because they're so mutable and so easily attacked, right? So I think that's something that a lot of Bitcoiners may understand inherently, but they don't know explicitly that Bitcoin fixed settlements. And that is actually a very, very difficult thing to fix in the financial world.
Right. When I was working on Wall Street, of course, you have what's called the back office. And originally, back in the early 80s, settlement was trade day plus 6, I believe, or 5 days. Yeah. And then they reduced it to trade plus 3. So even today, they don't consider a trade. It hasn't settled for 3 days. Visa and MasterCard don't really settle trades for days on end. I mean, they do the transactions. The reason why GameStop became so huge is that Melvin Capital and these other hedge funds were abusing the system by short selling stocks, knowing that they never get settled. The system is so broken that they can actually counterfeit stock and just sell stock that doesn't exist. And so the GameStop Wall Street Bets guys figured out, well, we can actually create a short squeeze because they're so far out on a limb there. So Bitcoin fixes this. I mean, the transaction is the settlement, right? So you have absolute guarantee. Getting back to this energy usage. So the energy that goes into creating Bitcoin, it's just a one-time energy cost, because after that the UXTOs they keep the network is very, very small. It's similar to gold in that way, right? You spend a lot of money digging gold out of the ground, but once it's out of the ground, putting aside the insurance costs and the transportation costs, I mean, it's used as money. It can be used as money for thousands of years. Similar to Bitcoin. Once you create a Bitcoin, the cost of creating that Bitcoin is behind you. Unlike the fiat money, which is a perpetual Ponzi scheme. The amount of money that needs to be printed continues to expand exponentially to avoid bankruptcy, right?
Well, I would say it doesn't actually cost anything to produce a Bitcoin or even to make a transaction. The only energy consumption of the network is to secure the network itself, right? So I think Elon tried to break it down and say, it costs a lot of energy to transact, but it actually doesn't. So the network is always going to keep running, and the network is securing itself holistically, the whole thing. And as a byproduct, that network does generate Bitcoin. And as a byproduct, it does process transactions too. But if you look at the fiat system, I believe estimates are, the fiat system consumes 120 terawatts a year. And Bitcoin is somewhere 100, 110 maybe. But there's a massive cost to maintain that fiat money system. It's not just the printing. It's not just minting coins, which also has an environmental impact, but it's just that whole maintenance. There's servers involved. There's trucks moving physical dollar bills from location to location and transporting them on pallets and everything like that. So there is this massive energy cost, but it's difficult to calculate. Unlike with Bitcoin, you just multiply out the energy cost with hash rate. But for fiat, it's much more tricky to get that number. But
right. So you're saying that the cost. Okay, so the Bitcoin network has a cost. The miners are bearing that cost, and as a gratuity, they get free Bitcoin.
Something like that,
right?
Well,
All right. I mean, you're saying that when people say that the cost of a Bitcoin is $5,000 a coin or $4,000 a coin, that implies a cost. But what you're saying is that the cost is maintaining the network. That's where the cost goes, and the reward for maintaining that network is you get the Bitcoin. That's what you get for maintaining the network. So I mean, it brings up a philosophical question: why do people maintain this network? Right? Because is it because there's something about the whole project that borders on altruism, which is an interesting concept, because people seem to be gravitating toward Bitcoin because they have a certain interest in altruism, or something that's a better world, a better place to be in. And that seems to be a driving force in this community. Is that just airy fairy nonsense, or does that touch on anything that you believe is maybe true?
I mean, I think people will once in a while bring up the what if. What if there's a software flaw? What if something goes wrong? Would that be the end of Bitcoin? And my answer is a strong no, that it will continue. And the reason is that Bitcoin is very robust, technologically sound form of money, but all the competing forms of money are ridiculously weak. I mean, the fiat system is based on tens of thousands of completely unsecurable nodes that you have to trust all of to not, do an unauthorized print of money or something, right? So I think basically society needs a functioning money, and Bitcoin is the best form of money. And if something, if Bitcoin were to temporarily slip through some defect, it would just get repaired because people need it to work. So I think that kind of supports Bitcoin, that people need it ultimately.
Well, the idea that people need it to work is an idea that a lot of people are not willing yet to take on board, because they trust the fiat world. A lot of people don't even think, money is something that society needs, right? So the philosophy of it. It seems obvious for people in the community that we need this to work. We need the Bitcoin to work, but we're only, a minority in the global population. The majority of the global population doesn't believe that society needs money to work. They think that there's a magic money tree or there's a magic money cow that they milk and it solves all their problems and they're happy to live in that world. So the question is it the collapse of the magic money tree world that's going to ultimately be Bitcoin's triumph? Or will humans philosophically start to respond to an inner calling that's been dead for a long time because we've lived in a fiat world so many years? Where's going to win out in the end?
So the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it doesn't matter. You can be mining Bitcoin for altruistic reasons or for profit, or to try to attack the network. But it doesn't matter because you're still securing the network in all three scenarios. So if you take Blockstream, for example, there is a degree of altruism for us to start getting into mining. And this is something Adam and I started talking about a lot after the block size war, saying, every company that is involved in Bitcoin should be mining Bitcoin to have a foot in the network protecting it. Like, you got to do something, not just buy Bitcoin and keep it on your balance sheet, because you're not actively securing it. And people can attack it if there are not enough people that are invested in Bitcoin that are mining Bitcoin. You can't just outsource that completely. I think we're starting to see more and more of that with people getting involved in mining. Like, even Square now is doing a solar farm in partnership with Blockstream. So, Square, a massive financial company, now starting to mine Bitcoin. And we're just going to see more and more of that. It just makes sense. Like, if you're going to hold $1 billion in Bitcoin, you better have a $10 million mining operation, or else, your investment is at risk from the attack vectors that we had during the block size wars, right? Even though I think they're far more minimized now. But for us, like, getting involved in mining was to spur on the security of the network and to have these facilities where people that may otherwise not have been mining can now start mining. So, Reid Hoffman started becoming a miner. He's the co-founder of LinkedIn. Like, I don't think he would have gone out there and, bought some land and built a facility. But because we had hosting facilities, he's like, yeah, sign me up. And those are his miners. He can direct them to whatever pool. He can, signal for whatever BIP he wants to signal for. And it's the same for all of our other major customers. We're just giving them access to that. But again, like, it doesn't really matter. If they're doing it for altruistic reasons, that's good. And we should have that. But, they could also be in it purely for profit. And a lot of miners are just in it for profit. And that's okay too. I don't think that they'll be winning out in the long term, because those miners are probably selling Bitcoin to pay for operational and electrical costs. Whereas for a miner that's aligned with Bitcoin, we're just mining Bitcoin to get more Bitcoin. So in a long enough time horizon, we win out.
Our guest Nozomi Hayes has explained it, however, is that, like, no matter how greedy, even as you mentioned, the person who was trying to 51% attack the network, like, Bitcoin, the game theory of it converts, no matter what evil you have in your mind, it converts it into altruism, because you're securing the wealth of somebody with, 1 million Satoshis to their name, and you're doing that work for them for free. Try going to JP Morgan and trying to open a bank account if you only have, $500 to your name. They're not going to open one for you because they don't want to waste their time and energy securing your wealth for you. No matter how important it is to you. But in terms of that need that you point out, I want to ask you as we wrap up here, in the early days of Bitcoin, it was, mostly individuals, and it was individuals using Silk Road or paying for porn online or gambling and things like that. And Max and I, a few years ago, had predicted we would see the same thing on the nation state level. It would be, okay, El Salvador is maybe not a pariah, but they are like a client state of America, use the US dollar. Cuba, Iran this past week have both announced, like, going to Bitcoin. Is that the same sort of, is that the natural progression, which you think is like the those who need it because they're excluded, the likes of Julian Assange on a nation state level are obviously going to be the first to adopt Bitcoin? Is this just the beginning now? Is that something that you see opening up to the rest of the world, the bigger nations?
Yeah, Bitcoin is recourse for those that have no recourse. It's monetary recourse. It's like it's the last resort. Like you can always go to Bitcoin. Fiat rails will ban you or block you or deny you access, but Bitcoin will never deny you, right? It's always there, and anybody can use it. I think the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is apolitical money. Like it doesn't have any allegiance to anybody, and people are free to access it just permissionlessly.
Yeah, I mean, you see quite a high adoption rate. I think Africa has one of the highest Bitcoin adoption rates in terms of, I guess, OTC kind of peer-to-peer trading and Bitcoin onboarding new users. And I think that you should kind of expect that in a way, because for people in the West with relatively stable currencies, yeah, there's inflation, but they don't feel it day to day necessarily. They have a lot of payment options, whereas in Africa they don't. So I think it's them kind of leapfrogging a technology where they don't really have banking, and they're just skipping over even ever having banking, just going straight to the Bitcoin standard. So, I think it's unclear how far this is away, but you can get hyper Bitcoinization situations occurring with a weak currency too. So maybe one of those will fall, the first domino, at some point soon.
Right, definitely in Latin America. Those currencies, one of them is probably, obviously El Salvador is well on its way, and that'll be a chain reaction, I think. So, and I think that's happening pretty quick.
Yep. And, in the final wrap up, why don't you each tell the audience, like, what you think, especially, what Blockstream might offer them as a maybe a newbie participant to Bitcoin, like how they could participate the best. What do you think is the best way, the best sort of Bitcoiner in terms of like, what can they do to contribute and participate?
So, I mean, people can participate in all kinds of different ways. I think that's one nice thing about Bitcoin, that, you can get interested or start using it for all kinds of different reasons, financial, utility, speculation, and it grows on people philosophically after the fact. And they start reading more, learn more about money, about inflation, how fiat money works, that kind of thing. So I think it's fine. People can get interested and become active, however is interesting to them, and talk amongst their friends, participate in local communities. If they're in business, help small local businesses integrate technology. There's a lot of that going on in El Salvador now, for example, with Lightning Network and wallet development and infrastructure.
Samson?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way for a beginner is probably to get one of our wallets, Blockstream Green or Aqua, and just experiment with it. In Aqua, you can buy Bitcoin or liquid Bitcoin and start experimenting and learning about it that way. I think the best way for people to learn about Bitcoin is just to get some and have that feeling of having control over your own money and being able to do whatever you want with it. And then from there, just there's like a ton of resources to go down the rabbit hole on. There's many aspects to learn, but I think just having it, transacting it, feeling that rush of freedom when you make your very first transaction, like nobody can help you, like you're just sending it, and if you make a mistake, you're on your own. But that really just ignites that feeling of freedom and lets you understand what Bitcoin is really about. And if you really want to get more involved, there are opportunities across the board. If you think of Bitcoin as a new form of money, right? We've barely scratched the surface of it. There are so many products and services that need to be built, and so many more ways that we can improve existing products and services. So, you can get involved in any way. You don't need to be a coder. You can work on product. You can work on marketing, design. There's tons of ways to be involved. If you imagine, this is like the earliest stage of the internet. Like, there's so much to do, and we need more people to do that.
Right. And of course, Bitcoin is a land of conferences, right? And that's the other remarkable thing, is anybody can go to these conferences. And I see Adam get surrounded, people come up to you all the time, and you could talk to the top names in this space, the builders in this space, unlike the legacy financial system where who's ever going to say hi to Jamie Dimon, right? Like, you're never going to get anywhere near that guy. But
yeah, everyone's completely accessible. That's a good point. But anyway, guys, so congratulations again on the big money raise. $210 million raised for Blockstream. Puts them at a $3 billion plus valuation. Firmly in the unicorn status. Of course, the Infinite Fleet project that Samson Moe is also involved with looks like it's barreling forward as well, and big things are happening there.
there's a Kaiser fleet.
There's a Kaiser fleet there. We Stacy has her own starship, and she goes around and spreads love in the parallel universe, and so that's the beautiful love universe, and so that's great. So thanks for coming on and giving us the update here to find out what the heck's going on with you guys.
Thank you. Orange pill pod to the moon.
Yeah. Oh, how toxic was that, Max?
Super toxic. So, this whole feud between Blockstream and Bitcoin Cash has been going on for 10 years, really. Roger Ver did the hard fork. And, he, like Craig Wright, he is a monstrously boorish bully who's sitting on a pile of shit. And he's attacked. One of the many of his targets has been Blockstream, and so for Blockstream to achieve this new funding round, it puts the market capitalization in the several $billion. It'll soon eclipse the shitcoin that is BCH, and it just goes to show you that that again evil can be defeated. So whether it's Roger or Craig or Charles or Vitalik, evil can be defeated. And I think Blockstream's doing a good job defeating evil.
Well, there's that high time preference and low time preference thing. And, Blockstream epitomizes the whole having a low time preference. Like all these people with this mad consumption and toxic positivity, where they want you to instead be all filled with fear, anger, sadness, so you could take more of their drugs, consume more of their corn syrup laden products, do all this like harm to yourself so that you feel a little bit better now because you're not feeling any positivity, right? You're not feeling any optimism. You're not feeling any hope for the future. So I think the slow build, and this has always been a problem with Bitcoin since day one, the community's expectations, right? There's been, all people in the world can participate, and somebody like Vitalik wanted the scams right away. Like they wanted the ability to scam people right away. And it's always been the security of the foundational layer, layer one money, that was the most important. And I think, somebody like Adam Back has been on the right side of that argument the whole time. And, thank God he was there, right? And Samson. And it was because at that time, it was very confusing because you did have people like Gavin Andreessen, you did have Mike Hearn, you did have core devs who, from the outside, you think they're the smartest people. They must know what they're talking about. And let's listen to what they say. But thankfully, there were people like Samson and Adam who also obviously are very smart and could steer the plebs to the righteous path.
Yeah, exactly. So that's right. We have a debt of gratitude for these folks, because otherwise we would be really in a bad shape without them. If the Rogers or the Craigs had been able to been successful in any way, imagine the carnage of that. Terrible, absolutely terrible, catastrophic.
So I hope you liked that interview. You see, Blockstream is just like doing all sorts of covering all those rest of those layers. So we've covered that layer one Bitcoin, and we've covered that with Nick Bhatia, his great book, Layered Money. And now all those layer two, layer three, And the whole ecosystem is something extraordinary, which Blockstream is working on, and Samson as well, outside of even Blockstream, so with Infinite Fleet and stuff like that. And with that, I want to say, this episode, it's good to be back. It's good to be back with Orange Pill Podcast. We were away for a while, traveling through Phoenix, and of course, the heat and the sun turned us into lizards. Oops, not lizard people, just lizards like lying in the sun.
Sun worshippers.
Sun worshippers. And it was hard to work while you're there, and it was amazing to meet so many of the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group people, the likes of Brandon, the likes of Gary, of course, Tish and Paco and Luigi were there, and just to hang out. And it was just so much fun to hang out and, rest our brains for now. But this episode is, of course, brought to you by swanbitcoin.com/orange pill. We've been smash buying there for the last few months, and I'm sure everybody in our audience has also been smash buying there, and it has been loving the price action on Bitcoin, because that's always a number go up technology, is an important part of the technology of the Bitcoin stack.
That's right. And if you like this t-shirt, go to Twitter at Deeks, DEEKS is the guy to see if you want to get one of these t-shirts. The guy says the black one, and I also have a white one.
I like it. I think I might go order one.
Yeah, do that. The feminine version, the female version, the girl version, right? It's yeah. I mean, Phoenix was a lot of fun.
I think we'll continue.
I mean, the show was very entertaining.
Oh, the stand-up show. Yeah. And look at the comments on our YouTube. It's fantastic. By the way,
I thought my part was particularly entertaining.
Oh, are you fishing for a compliment?
Well, I thought it was very entertaining.
Well, I think the audience found it that way too.
The audience was completely into it. I was into it. There was a lot of give and take between myself and the audience. It was very, very entertaining. I mean, that's entertainment. That's entertainment, baby. That's the thing about it's missing in Bitcoin, is that nobody in Bitcoin is entertaining. They're either kind of, stiff, or they're scams, right? There's no Bitcoin maximalists that are entertaining, that are really maximalists.
Well, that's it for this episode of Orange Pill Podcast. Coming to you from not so sunny Phoenix. We're not in sunny Phoenix anymore, but we're heading to Paris. I can't wait to come to you from Paris, because they love their cats.
Are we going to do some shows in Paris?
Yeah. Of course. We're going to be there for like 2.5 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, we're going to join the revolution, because that's where it's happening.
Those are my people.
Yeah. If you've been looking at the stuff from Paris, the resistance happening, the protests happening, if you know Paris, if you know friends, like they all, August is sacrosanct, right? They go away, they vacation, they do not do anything all of August.
All right.
It doesn't matter if your house is burning down, the firemen are on vacation. They don't care.
Right.
We've had the water mains in our apartment building, and when we were living in Paris, burst in August. It took them 2 weeks to bother showing up. It was like pouring water into the lobby for 2 weeks, right? But they have been out there protesting in huge numbers in August. That means when September happens, the rentrée, holy shit. We're going to be there for that.
What is going to happen?
I don't know. We'll see. But I'm imagining it's going to be hundreds of thousands of people. If August managed to bring out tens of thousands, then it's going to be pretty seismic. I'm assuming. I don't think the French will let us down.
They seem ready to rock and roll, but where's it all going? Where's it all headed?
Well, they have found the Bitcoin guillotine, and that's where it's all going, because Bitcoin fixes everything.
The global razor?
The global razor is here.
Well, I mean, if they all decided to boycott the banking system by going into Bitcoin exclusively, I mean, do they understand that that's the king move?
Of course they do.
How do they understand it? I don't see that.
They didn't even wait. Look at the French versus the Lebanese, and there's a lot of overlap between it. Of course, Beirut is considered the Paris of the Middle East.
Yeah.
They all speak French there.
Oui.
And one thing you see is the Lebanese. They burned down their central bank this past year, but they waited for hyperinflation. Like
there was
genuine.
a big fire at the Banque de France
Exactly.
2 years ago. You know, we used
but
to
they
pass
did it again this past year.
They did it again, right?
Yeah. So they're not waiting for hyperinflation. They're just like, they just burn that shit down now. And now that they have the monetary razor blade.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. They have, but I mean, are they actively embracing Bitcoin now?
So,
like, okay, I'm doing this event at Paymium, which is a big exchange in Europe, right? So I'm going to be on stage for half an hour, 40 minutes. It's not a big crowd. So what can I say so that they leave that room ready to burn everything down?
Well, you just tell them that they don't need to. You've been there long enough. You know that they get into fights with the police. You know they burn things down, the Dagonflay, all of that stuff. They do all that shit. They don't need to do that. They could extend their vacation. They can extend their August through September. There is no rancho. You don't need to even come back. You just have the Bitcoin.
Permanent vacation.
It's a permanent vacation. That is the way to the heart and soul of an ordinary French person.
Okay.
And
I think
they
that's
could
it.
even, we have to get MVK to make a suppository where they could put their private seed in there.
Yeah. You put the cold card up your butthole.
You need that.
The
for
French love that. They love anything put up their buttholes.
So we're going to go to France with some suppositories, orange pill suppositories, into which they can insert their private key or just insert it like for their OnlyFans.
Yeah. So this is the key to the heart of the French people is that with Bitcoin, they can go on permanent vacation.
That's what we're talking about.
Right. That'll be the topic of my discussion will be permanent vacation.
A permanent vacation. And, it's and it's a way to look at the Gauls. The Gauls can win the war. Okay, they lost some battles against the Romans and against Caesar. But now, like, at the end of the day, they can overcome those centralizing imperial forces with but I think permanent vacation.
The Gauls could make a comeback against, Asterix.
Exactly.
Who's the prototypical Gallic hero.
Gallic hero.
And, bring back Asterix. Could be a Bitcoiner.
Right. Well, I've got to go.
If one country is ready to do it, it would be France. It's not Australia, obviously.
So,
Australia has given in, acquiesced completely. They're back to a penal colony from where it started. Started off as a penal colony for the Brits. Now it's now it's a penal colony for Pfizer. It's just a penal colony, and they came and they went. We had a Crocodile Dundee in the 80s. That was the highlight. We had Olivia Newton-John, and apparently ABBA's getting back together again to save Australia.
But ABBA's from Sweden.
Okay, see how fucked up? They're not going to save Australia because they're Swedish. So that's not going to work, is it? I thought they were Australian. They're Swedish?
They're Swedish.
Really? I never knew ABBA was Swedish.
ABBA disappeared because of the lead singer is all shy, right? And didn't want all the media attention.
Isn't she on OnlyFans having sex with vegetables?
No, she's like only a freaking Scandinavian would be like actually like want nothing to do, like hide from fame and fortune. Like Kirsten Flagstad. Nobody knows where she's buried, right? And she's like, nobody even knows who she is, but she was actually one of the most famous people in history.
Yeah, how many people are Googling Kirsten Flagstad right now?
Flagstad. She was
plenty.
Norwegian. But nevertheless, that's Scandinavia, right? And we must go because I need to start readying. We're going to Paris in 2 weeks. I got to start.
You need to take 2 weeks to get ready to go to Paris?
Yeah, I got to look good, honey. Got to look good.
What everything is there you might need. You can get it there. You don't have to bring it with you.
Yeah, but people don't want to watch like 2 hours of content because we also have the interview with Samson.
Did we do it yet?
No, we're going to do it.
How was it? Was it good?
It was before this segment.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember because we didn't do it. That's why I don't remember.
Oh, Jesus
I had to make all everything up like, oh, yeah, it was great to hear about this and great to hear about that. I made all that up because we haven't even talked to him yet.
Or you have to hide from fanatical ABBA fans now. They're going to go all over your boomer ass saying, you fucking boomer. They're not Australian.
Muriel's Wedding. That was a good film. See, that's why I got it confused, because Muriel's Wedding is Australian. And she was an ABBA fan. And then she went to Europe and found her, OnlyFans page. She expressed herself. And then you had that movie with one of the James Bonds playing the boyfriend of Sophie's Choice. That woman who played Sophie's Choice. What's her name?
Meryl Streep?
Ariana Flagstaff. No, Meryl Streep. 9-time Academy Award nominated Meryl Streep. So that's what I thought it was about Australia. I didn't know. It's like, oh, I'm in the IKEA store and I'm lost and I'm buying a dresser who's got a name, Bob, thinking about ABBA. That didn't work. That never works, And that whole store is designed like a maze. You can't get out of it. A lot of people, they find 5 years later, they're still in IKEA trying to find the exit. They don't know what the hell's going on. They're living with furniture that have names. They're fine with that. That's what happens in Sweden. It's not just about meatballs. There's a lot of shit going on there. Now the guy who runs IKEA, I think he's the president of Sweden now. They made him the president. Did you know that? He's now running the whole country. So the whole country is one big furniture maze. You don't know what town you're in, what city you're in, where you're on a ship, you're on land. You don't know. But everything's got a name like Bob, Cindy, Joe. It's a fucked up country now. Totally fucked up. Totally fucked up. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. Hello? Where's everybody going?